The storm had just broken when they found her. Rain lashed against the glass towers of Eleron, lightning streaking across the skies like vengeful runes. Soldiers in silver cloaks dragged a half-conscious girl from the riverbed, her wrists bound. In crimson silk, her lips whispering a name no one dared speak aloud, a name older than the kingdom itself. She was shaking, soaked, and blood-smeared. But it wasn't her blood. And clutched in her hands, wrapped in oilskin and sorrow, was the contract. Not just any contract, but his. Lord Orenvale's signature scrawled in enchanted ink, sealing the fate of the girl no one remembered. And yet somehow everyone feared, as the guards pulled her toward the citadel's gates. One of them muttered, "He finally brought her back." Another asked, "Is she the key or the curse?" But no one had time to answer because the girl opened her eyes, looked up at the highest tower, and whispered, "You told me it was a rescue, but you lied?" And then, just as the gates swung open, mirrors shattered inside the tower, though no one had touched it. That was the moment Eleran began to fall. Long before she was the girl from the river, her name was Iselvarant, daughter of a forgotten healer and a merchant who vanished one winter and was never spoken of again. She grew up in the mist-cloaked village of Kaelmore, nestled between cursed woods and salt-stained cliffs, where the waves whispered in tongues. No man dared translate. Isil had eyes the color of old wine and a voice that villagers claimed soothed dying men into smiling. But she was strange too quiet, to knowing. She read the scrolls the priest burned. She kept dream journals that never stayed closed, and she never cried, not even at her mother's funeral. There was a boy once, Darian Thorne. She loved him. He vanished the day after their first kiss. After promising he'd return with something that would make her life different, she waited. Days passed, then seasons. Then she found his satchel at her doorstep, and the contract hidden inside. The contract was old, etched in shimmering, that glowed beneath moonlight and pulsed like a heartbeat. It bore one name, Orn, Valand, one demand. The bearer of this scroll agrees to serve willingly, in heart, in magic, in silence. At the bottom, in red wax, was a seal shaped like a serpent devouring its own tail. The next day, a hooded messenger arrived at Kaelmore's edge. He carried no weapons, just a black sigil ring and a box containing 3 items: a necklace, a crimson-bound book, and a letter that read, "Isil, I promised I'd come back. I couldn't, but he can save you. Sign it, burn the ribbon, say yes." DTTHE. Villagers tried to stop her. The baker wept. The priest screamed scripture. A child tugged her sleeve and whispered, "Don't follow the mirrors." But none of it mattered, because her heart was already broken. And broken things don't fear shattering. She signed. She burned the ribbon, and the world changed. She didn't wake up in her bed, or in Caelmore. She woke up in a tower of glass and gold, chained by silk, with Orenvale himself seated beside her, pouring tea like it was a normal morning. "Welcome, Isil," he said, without smiling. "You're safe now." But she didn't feel safe, not even when he whispered, "You'll never have to be afraid again." Especially not then, because somewhere, deep down, she remembered what her mother once warned her before the fever took her. If a man saves you with magic, he'll own more than your life. He'll own your story. The whispers in the village returned long after she vanished. Some said Isil had been stolen by a Fey Lord in disguise. Others claimed she had summoned Orenvale, trading her soul for power, or worse, for love. But no one could deny what happened. Next, the crows stopped flying over Caelmore. The sea dried back 3 feet from the cliffs, and every mirror in the village cracked, except one in the citadel, Time passed, but Isil did not age. She was given silks, food, music, a library of forbidden volumes, and yet no doors were ever unlocked and no window opened fully. She was told she was beloved, that she had agreed to everything, but every night she found scratches on her arms she didn't remember making, and sometimes she dreamed of Darian's voice screaming from behind the mirror in her chamber, begging her not to trust Orin. Vale. Then came the storm. Then came the escape, or what she thought was an escape, because now she was back in the kingdom, the contract still in her hand, and she was starting to realize something terrible. Maybe she hadn't escaped at all. Maybe this was exactly where Orin wanted her to be. When Isil awoke in the infirmary wing of the citadel, she wasn't alone. 3 clerics in sun robes stood around her bed, whispering over her like she was an artifact, not a person. Her wrists were bandaged, the silk bindings removed, her gown had been changed. Someone had washed her hair, but the contract was still there, resting on the side table like it was waiting for her to pick it up again. "Who brought me here?" she asked, voice rough with sleep and salt. The eldest cleric flinched. "Lord Vale's order. He said you were returning home." "Home," no one answered. The High Court summoned her the next morning. Orin Vale did not appear in person. He never did. Instead, his voice echoed through a shard of enchanted obsidian on the magistrate's desk, a cold, perfect voice that somehow sounded closer than her own thoughts. "She signed of her own will," he said. "Her magic is mine now. She must stay within the citadel until the cycle completes." The magistrate, blind in one eye, turned toward her. "Is this true?" Isil's hands trembled. "I don't remember agreeing to be his magic." The shard pulsed. "You burned the ribbon. That is consent." There was silence, and then the magistrate whispered, "So it begins again." That night, Isil wandered into the mirror gallery, an abandoned hall of enchanted looking glasses, each supposedly cursed or broken by past spells. She wasn't allowed there, but no one stopped her. In the deepest alcove, a tall oval mirror, HUMMED. It was cracked but only once, straight down the center, and inside it she saw Darian, older, pale, wearing the exact same contract ribbon she'd burned a year ago, wrapped tightly around his throat like a collar. He didn't speak. He only mouthed 3 words: "Don't trust him." She ran back to her chamber, heart racing, lungs on fire. That's when she found the journal tucked beneath her pillow, not hers. A man's single quotes bound in dark hide. Its first page was inscribed in gold ink. "For Isil, when memory begins to break. You won't remember everything. The contract ensures that. But I swear what you lost, I lost too." And then, page after page of pain, descriptions of her laughter, sketches of her hands, notes on how her magic surged during storms, how she hummed when she lied, how she said please only when she meant no, and at the bottom of every page, A.V. Orin Vale. He had been watching her for years, studying her magic, testing her fears, stealing her memory. She hadn't just signed a contract, she'd been conditioned to through dreams, through spells, through him. She stormed the West Tower. She demanded an audience with him. Instead, she found a ballroom full of courtiers in glass masks. Music played from invisible strings. Orin Vale stood at the far end, dressed in night-colored velvet, sipping wine so dark it could have been blood. "You lied to me," she hissed. He set his glass down slowly. "No, I withheld. There's a difference. You took my memories, my choices." He approached. "I gave you a sanctuary. Your mind was fragile. You wanted to forget him, Darian." A flicker in his eyes. Just enough. You don't remember what he did, do you? She opened her mouth and then came the twist. Oren didn't say anything. He simply snapped his fingers. The ballroom vanished. The masks fell, and Darian stood in the center of the room, chained at the wrists, eyes hollow, body bruised. She doesn't know, he said quietly, his voice choked. Please don't make me. Tell her, tell me what. Issel whispered. Auren placed a hand on her shoulder and looked her dead in the eyes. That Darian forged my name on the contract, that he made you sign it. Everything shattered. He had lied. Daria, and the boy she loved had faked the rescue. The ribbon, the satchel, the message, urging her to say yes. It was all him, because he knew Vale would come for her eventually, and because he believed Vale could protect her from what she really was. I did it to save you, Darian, said voice. Broken. You don't remember what you did in Kalemore, but I do. He knelt, hands bleeding from the chains. You're not cursed, Issel. You're the curse. That's why I gave you to him. The room spun. Her knees buckled. Magic sparked at her fingertips and bitten. Erratic. She remembered flames. She remembered screaming. She remembered her mother's eyes turning black before the fever took her. She wasn't the girl who needed saving. She was the girl. People needed protection from and Darian gods. Darian had handed her to the one man powerful enough to bind her magic in silk and silence. And yet, as Orenvale took her hand again and whispered, I never wanted to hurt you, only to hold you. She felt a deeper betrayal crack through her than anything Darian had done, because the truth wasn't just that she'd been given away. The truth was that she'd been loved by both of them, and used by both. The citadel buzzed with whispers. Servants glanced over their shoulders twice instead of once. Candles refused to stay lit near Isel's chamber, and the old woman who ran the tower, Kitchens, left a single note in her breadbasket, scrawled in shaking ink. They say your magic came from the Vale line. But no Vale ever wept lightning. Whatever Issel was, it wasn't entirely human. She started hearing things again. First, her name spoken in empty corridors, then dash songs, lullabies in a language she didn't remember learning, echoing from locked rooms. When she asked the guards about the voices, they only shook their heads. Mirrors don't whisper unless they're broken, Lady Issel once said. Best you not listen. But the voices did whisper, and they spoke of a prophecy sealed in glass and grief, passed through bloodlines and old contracts. The words crawled into her dreams. The girl whose kiss sears, whose tears bind, will break the vow, sealed in silk and ash, and when her captor loves her back, the sky will fall. She woke each time with her hands burning and the room cold. One afternoon, while wandering the Eastern archives, Issel found a shattered scroll case sealed in blue wax. It bore the crest of House Vale, but older, wrong. She opened it anyway. Inside was a single parchment. Ink faded with age. If the girl of flame is bound, the forest will howl. But if she is kissed in truth, the citadel will bleed in the margin. Someone had added, keep her safe, or keep her asleep. Of V that night, she dreamed of Darian unshackled, smiling, holding out his hand. But when she took it, her skin split open, and from beneath it spilled black silk and red fire. She screamed. When she awoke, she was on the floor of Vale's study, and he was kneeling beside her, his palms scorched. You cast without intent, he said. You're unsealing yourself. I didn't cast anything, she rasped. No, he said quietly. But the mirror, did the mirror? She hadn't been back since seeing Darian in it. But the visions, the scrolls, the songs, all of it pointed there at dusk. She returned, but this time She brought the contract with her, and this time, the mirror didn't show Darian. It showed a woman, draped in ancient robes, face shadowed by firelight, a crown of thorns twisted into her hair. She looked like Isel only, older, welder, with eyes like embers and a voice that bled. You gave yourself to him, the reflection hissed. You think you are a prisoner, but you are the prison. He keeps you close not because he fears losing you, but because he fears what will awaken if he lets you go. The contract in Isel's hand began to burn. The silk curled, the ink screamed. She ran to Darian, found him still chained, still silent. Tell me, she whispered, what did I do in Kalemore? He looked up slowly. You didn't do anything, Isel, you just were. And then he said the words that shattered her. You're not cursed. You're the last living heir of the hollow flame, a bloodline long erased because it could destroy both gods and kings. She stumbled back. The hollow flameth folklore, bedtime terror, a forgotten magic born in the First War, capable of undoing spellcraft itself. They said the last bearer was burned at the pyre centuries ago, her screams turning into lightning, but that was just a tale, except at WASN single quotes. She was living proof. Oren knew, of course. He knew why else bind her. Why else love her just enough to keep her docile? But it got worse, because as she turned to run from Darian's cell, a new voice echoed from the shadows. So she knows now how delightful. Isel spun and saw the rival she hadn't seen. Him in 2 years, not since the masquerade in Tellerith, when her hand had been promised to someone else and she'd run. But here he was, Cyrus Ellenfall, heir to the Eastern Court, her betrothed, the boy with the silver tongue and the blade behind his smile. He wore white dot, the color of weddings or of executions. Hello, Dove, he said. I hear your new fiancé stole your mind. Thought I'd come retrieve what's left. The second twist hit like thunder. Cyrus had never stopped looking for her because he needed her, not for love, but because his kingdom's border was fraying, crumbling under curses, and only hollow flame magic could repair it. He didn't want her safe, he wanted her lit, used, burned, and worst of all, he wasn't alone. Dozens of scrolls had been smuggled into the citadel under false names, calling her the moonbound flame and declaring her the final key to the prophecy of collapse. Prophecy.magic.bloodlines. She wasn't caught in a love triangle. She was caught in a war of kingdoms, disguised as courtship, and everyone who touched her wanted to own her power, not love her, not really. Only the mirror, broken and buried in truth, ever told her what she needed to hear. If you stay, you burn. If you flee, you ruin the world. She stood alone at the high window that night, hair loose, fingers glowing, and far in the distance, she saw it, a beacon of flame rising on the horizon. Her mother's village. Cael more. Burning again. Word spread before sunrise, not through proclamations or couriers, but through breathless whispers passed in stairwells, inked half-truths scribbled on scrolls, and the flickering eyes of servants who had seen too much. The girl in the tower, she's not his prisoner. She's his insurance. They say she's the hollow flame reborn. If she cries, the walls might crack. If she screams, gods help us. In the taverns outside the citadel, mugs paused, mid-air. In the candlelit reading rooms, nobles read and reread the same paragraph, unable to focus. In the court gardens, a new bloom was nicknamed the Burning Kiss. Its petals streaked, crimson like dried blood. The court was divided. Lords of Valor demanded Isel be turned over to the temples for sanctified protection. Wives of the Whispering. Faith lit shadow candles and prayed that her magic stayed dormant. General Valkros wanted her tested if she's fire. We should know how hot she burns. And the king. The king had not spoken at all. He hadn't even seen her. Oren had made sure of that. But in her tower, Issil read the letters, dozens, smuggled in on the folds of bread, napkins under pillow seams, pressed between book pages. Some begged for her blessing. Some offered her escape. Some warned, run. He won't protect you when they come. One simply said, we know where your heart really lies, and he's still in chains. Darian. She hadn't seen him since the truth broke, since he'd told her what she really was, since she'd learned that Oren knew all along. The confrontation came in candlelight. Of course, he entered her chamber, like he always did, quietly. Like the storm, he'd always tried to be gentler then. You lied, she said, without turning. I protected, he replied, voice low. From what? Myself. Or from the kingdoms that want to use me? Silence. From me, she answered for him. Finally, he stepped closer, but didn't touch her. You were safer when you didn't know. She turned, flame flickering on her breath. No, you were safer when I didn't know. He didn't deny it. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a scroll, one sealed in gray wax, the color of wartime edicts. She took it, hands trembling. Inside, a list of names, dozens of them. People executed across the kingdoms in the last decade, all carrying the same trait in their blood. Descendants of the Hollow. Flame Isil's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You weren't saving me, she whispered. You were surviving me. Outside the citadel, the villagers had already chosen sides, some painted suns in ash on their doorsteps, sign of allegiance to Isil, the Flamebringer. Others cursed her name and offered flowers to the sea goddess. Hoping water would overcome fire, at the Red Lantern Tavern, an old woman sang a half-forgotten ballad. One kiss she gave, and skies were torn. One tear she shed, and kingdoms mourned. Played piano in the palace gardens for the younger nobles, but his eyes always drifted to the tower. To her he sent a single message. To Isil that week, written in gold on raven feather parchment, you were never meant to be owned. Little flame, just ... held, until you burned for me instead. Everywhere she turned, someone wanted her, but no one saw her. Not the broken girl from Kael Moor, not the dreamer who once thought a kiss could save her, not the woman who had made a man promise he'd protect her hand, watched as he bound her instead one night. As bells tolled the hour of morning, a child's voice echoed under her window. Lady Flame, do you love him? Which one? She whispered back, not sure if she meant Darian or Oren or the version of herself she used to be. By dawn, she made a choice, not escape, not surrender, but fire. Just enough to be seen, just enough to make the kingdom realize if she had burned once, she could burn again. And so, at sunrise, a wave of heat radiated from the tower, not enough to hurt, but enough to melt every mirror. In the citadel. Every single one, the message was clear. No more lies. No more reflections. See her for what she was or not at all. The tower was still warm when the knock came soft, careful. Like the person behind it feared the door might bite. Isil didn't answer. She sat at the edge of the glass balcony, wind tangling her hair, breath steady now. The melted mirrors below had silenced the court for a full day. Oren had not returned. Darian had not been seen. Even the birds avoided the spire now, as if it pulsed with something ancient. The knock came again. Then a whisper. You don't remember, do you? Her pulse stopped cold. She knew that voice, not from the citadel, not from her dreams, not even from Cael Moore, from before. The door creaked open without her touching it. A boy stood there, no older than 12. Pale, barefooted, with eyes to gold for any mortal blood, he walked in like he belonged, stopped a few feet from her, and placed something on the ground between them. A mirror, unbroken. How did you get that? She asked, her voice hoarse. He just tilted his head. You gave it to me. I've never seen you before in my life. He smiled. Because you made yourself forget. The mirror shimmered, then spoke. I still remember the burning lake. Remember what you took from her. She backed up. The boy lifted the mirror and held it to her face. It showed her reflection, but not the one she knew. The girl in the glass had silver hair, not auburn. Her eyes were weeping black, and her skin was glowing with runes. I'm not her, she whispered, but even that sounded like a lie now. Your real name isn't Isel, the boy said softly. It's Ashara. You made a deal a decade ago. You traded your name to escape your destiny. The air cracked with frost. You weren't a prisoner in the tower, he continued. You were the tower, a lock, a seal. What was I sealing? She asked, already knowing. He smiled, sad, gentle. Not what, who. And then the scrolls in her room began to burn, one by one, the moment the boy left, the door slamming shut. Behind him, without sound, she turned to the center table. There, half-burned and dripping molten ink, was her original contract. Her name no longer read Isel Va Rent. It read Ashara Vale, the girl who sealed herself. The fire that forgot its own flamed up below the tower. The citadel gates were opening. Cyrus stood at the front. He wore no crown, no armor, just a simple shirt soaked with lake water, and a blade carved from obsidian glass dotted his side. Darian. Bound. Bleeding alive, a message had been sent. Come down, choose him or me, and if you won't, we'll burn everything until you remember why we feared you. She looked into the mirror one last time, and this time the girl didn't cry. She smiled because she finally understood. It was never a rescue. It was never captivity. It was a trap of her own making, and now she had the key. The tower cracked. The first flame licked the sky and below. Two men waited, one in chains, the other with a sword, both in love with a girl who was never a girl at all, but a god waiting to wake up. So now you know she wasn't just a girl. She wasn't just a prisoner. She was the answer the kingdoms had buried, and the flame they hoped would never rise again. But here's the question no one dares ask aloud. If you had the power to burn the world to save yourself, would you do it? Would you choose the man who swore to protect you, even if it meant caging your soul? Or the one who reminded you who you were, even if it meant tearing the world apart? And what if neither were worthy? What if you were the danger all along? Let's talk about it. Was Ashara right to forget her power? Can Darian be trusted again? What do you think Cyrus really wants from her? Drop your theories in the comments. Tell us who you'd choose. Orin, Darian, or no one at all. And if your name was written in that final mirror, would you read it or break it? Want part 2? Click subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss when the fire spreads again. Next time, Ashara will remember everything, and someone won't survive it. Until then, guard your name, trust no mirrors. And if a boy knocks on your door after dark, don't let him in.